Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you with some, I could almost do like, I should have learnt some like rabbit stuff and we could have, anyway. We're here to take a look at the Coolermaster 692 Advanced, but it's now the black and white version. Now I have reviewed the original white one before, but one thing I will say right from the very beginning is, because I got an early sample, these aren't the exact ones that are going out to the shop, but really the only change that's going to be getting made when they go to full retail is if you have a look at the white bits underneath the front, so you can see the kind of, you can see the white line. Basically on the retail ones that will eventually get sent out to all the stores, that will be black, so you won't see that at all. So that's really the only thing that you need to be worried about. We're going to give this another look over, like we did with the last review. The case is near enough exactly the same. Well, it is exactly the same. It's only really colour differences. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about water cooling options and the possibility of the little things that you can do inside of it as well. And obviously then my thoughts on the aesthetics. But let's face it, it's white, so we're off to a good start. But I'm going to give you a quick look round the case in case you've not seen the other review before. Apologies if I do miss anything, hopefully I won't, but yeah, I'm not going to go as in-depth as I normally would do. We will spend a little bit more time talking about radiator options, what will fit, what you can do, where you can put stuff, and we'll kind of focus more on that side of things than actually reviewing the bits of the case. But anyway, we'll move on quickly and yeah, we'll see where we get to. Right then peeps, starting at the top, we have two USB 2s and two USB 3s. Then you've got the normal kind of headphone and microphone in the front as well. Power switch, reset switch, and this switch over here is to turn the LED off in the front fan. Also in the top we have, when you unslide, a hard drive dock in the top, which can fit 2.5 inch and 3.5 inch hard drives. The 3.5 inch will just slide straight in, so all pretty kind of standard simple stuff. And like I said to you before, as you can see the white underneath this, on the version that will be going to the shops, that underneath will be black. Now if I drop the camera down, you can see there the other white bit that I was talking about, which will be black. Now if I move the camera back a bit, what I'm just going to do is just pull the front of the case off, and you get the first look at the black internals. Whereas before this was white, it's now black. Now that's a 140mm clear fan in there, which lights up with white LEDs, but you can move this fan up and down should you wish, and you can also chuck a 120mm fan in there should you want. There's not enough room to fit two of either, it's one or the other, and you can either have it in the top position or the lower position. I suppose it really depends on where you want the air going and also where you want your hard drives as well. I'd personally have the fan further up with the hard drives in the bottom. Now if we move up ever so slightly, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 optical bays, and basically you can see that in the front. And also the optical bays do have, I'm just trying to look at this, have a look at my camera so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. Basically there is some fine mesh in the front of the bays, and this will help with dust filtering. It's not the best system in the world, but it's definitely better than nothing, and will help you a little bit there. And as you can see, nice sturdy clicks, and the front goes back on, really no big shakes there. So I'm just going to reposition the camera and we'll have a look on the inside. Right then, our first look at the inside. One thing we can see is there's no side panel window, and it was a shame on the original white 690, because I think nowadays you do need a window, or at least a window option that you can buy afterwards as well, because let's face it, it is a good looking case, so it's a shame not to be able to show off your hardware that's inside. But we'll take the door off, and it's a steel door with a gloss white powder coat, as you can see quite easily there. You can see the reflection of my camera and my studio lights. It's a good quality powder coat as well. There's a bit of orange peel there, but like I said, it's powder coat. It's not mega I don't even think my camera would be able to pick up any ripples in it, but it's pretty damn good quality. Looking on the inside, as you can see now that we've got that monochrome kind of effect where we've got white on the outside and black on the inside. Originally, I have to admit, when I first saw this, especially with the black strip down the front, I didn't like it. That was my first kind of initial impression. Now I've got it and built it, I'm virtually on the grounds of preferring it. So yeah, it's definitely a grower. Now we've got a rig in here at the moment, and it's we've used a white NZXT power supply so that you can see kind of that kind of monochrome effect. We've got a big NHD14 in here which fits perfectly fine. The only, if you were, for argument's sake, if you were running the Fantex or the Silver Arrow with the 140mm fan on this side, it wouldn't fit because of the width of the case, but with a D14 like this, it fits perfectly fine. There's loads of room in there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total 3.5-inch hard drive bays, and they are toolless. It's just the simple bend them, clip them in, jobs are good in. There are grommets throughout the side of the motherboard case, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to reposition the camera so that we can have a good look on the inside together, talk to you about the grommets and then some of the other features. Right then peeps, move the case slightly. What I'm just going to do is actually I'm going to move the light a bit more as well and then zoom you in so that I can show you something. There we go, we can see absolutely perfectly there. Right, this is an E80X motherboard. So basically what that means is it's got a little bit more real estate on this side. This board is the 990FX UD7 from Gigabyte, but it's actually the same size as the Rampage 4 Extreme, Rampage 3 Extreme from Asus as well. So you can see that the board will fit in there fine. It just overhangs the grommets a little bit, but it really doesn't create any problems whatsoever. If I zoom you back out again, reposition the camera, you can also see in the roof we've got 2 slots, one on the right hand side of the board, one on the left hand side of the board for the 8-pin power, and then obviously your clips for your fans, or you know, whatever else you're going to be putting through. Obviously if you're going to be running water cooling, which we'll talk about in a bit, you'll be using the ports on the right hand side to put your fans through. It does come with a port on the right hand side, like I said, for your 8-pin, and because of the length of the case, most power supplies will fit up there perfectly fine. If you're running a big heatsink though, please remember to put your board in, fit the 8-pin through, get it all attached, then fit your heatsink, because some of the boards are obviously, they've got the CPU will sit further that way, and you'll end up having trouble trying to get the 8-pin up and through. Now what we're going to do is move the camera yet again, and we'll have a look at the back panel. Okay then peeps, just quickly, just wanted to show you this bit here. You can see with the AMD backplate on, it's one of the reasons why we've used the AMD board in this. You can see it ever so slightly goes underneath the CPU cutout area. You can still unscrew and get the backplate on and off easy enough thanks to the motherboard standoffs, but it's just worth noting that even though the CPU cutout is quite big, some motherboards, especially if you were running a big backplate for a water block or something, may still have problems. I would probably say, if it was me, I would have preferred the cutout to have gone down that little bit further, especially where it's so wide. I think it would have been a lot better. If I could kind of zoom out again, I think the fact that the CPU cutout is so wide, it wouldn't have made much difference if they'd made it a bit deeper as well. I think it would have, you know, done a much better job. There's a total of about 18-19mm of gap between the back of the motherboard tray and where the door would go, which is what you're restricted to because there's no bulge in the side panel or anything, so you have to get your wires all in there. As you can see, we've made no massive efforts to try and keep the back of the motherboard tray tidy. So you can get your rig in there quite easily. The only thing that I would say is if you've got a non-modular power supply, then you are going to have to, you know, be quite anal with how you go about getting all your cables in. But there are plenty of cable clips up the side of the grommets here. There's another set here, more over on this side as well. If you had a non-modular power supply, you could get it in there, but I would stick some extra time aside to make sure that you're willing to get it all clipped in so that you can still get the board on. It's possible, like I said, you just need to spend a little bit more time doing it. So that's the back of the tray. As you can see, do you know what I mean? We've got the two cutouts at the top. With the your 8-pin up here, one thing I will say is it can be a bit difficult to put the 8-pin up and through. You will have to kind of wiggle it a bit to be able to get it out there. It will go up there. If your 8-pin goes 4 and 4, it'll be alright because you can split it and poke them through. But if it's an all 8, like I said, you will have to wiggle, but you can unscrew. No, you can't unscrew actually. So you wouldn't be able to, but it's basically with the 8-pin, what I would say is just wiggle it, and if anything, put it through on a bit of an angle when you stick it up through, but it will go. If your 8-pin, however, just for a little bit of advice, say for argument's sake your one just will not go through, or you cannot get it through at all. That doesn't mean you can get away with putting it on the other side of the motherboard. All you need to do is just pop the motherboard out quickly, stick the cable up through the back of the CPU cutout and up this way, put your motherboard back in and screw it all up, and then it'll basically, your cable will come up the back of the tray and then through the slot. That's how I do it when the 8-pin cable is actually not long enough as well. Because on some cases it's just, you know, just that little bit too short. I stick it up through the CPU cutout, and that's one of the things, if you do have a problem getting your 8-pin up through there, go up through that way and it'll be perfectly fine. What I'm going to do now though is I'm going to flip the case around, take the CPU heatsink off, and we'll have a look at some radiator options and what you can do water cooling wise with the case. Right then peeps, on to water cooling support. In the roof, basically, that at the moment is a Coolant HX240HL. Now, that radiator is 40mm thick, but one of the reasons why I fitted it is if I bring you in a little bit more, you can see that it does overhang the motherboard. Now, what you need to remember is most motherboards are slightly different. CPU can be in a couple mil one way, heat sinks can be a couple mil one way, RAM can be a couple mil, up, down, left, right, can be anywhere. So with this board, the 40mm rad is the absolute maximum that you can get in. But what you need to see, and it's a way that you can work this out for yourself, so I'm trying to teach you how you can work out whether this will fit on your board or not. Because people always say, will it fit with this? And in all God's honesty, I really don't know half the time, and I haven't got the time to sit there and analyse your board and your case and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just trying to teach you how to do it. Now there, you can see that is one of the motherboard standoff screws just there, and it half covers that board. So if you have any heat sinks at the top of your case that are, you know, any higher than where that bolt screws in, this radiator will not fit in your case. But for the config that we're running at the moment, a 40mm thick rad is okay. But one of the things I will say is, now although this is a bit rusty because it's been in my garage for the last year, this is an XSPC RS240. This is only 30mm thick. The RS240 and the EX240, which is another one, the only difference is the EX has got a higher fin count. Now the difference with the higher fin count is because there's more fins, it will create more noise, and you need to have a higher CFM fan to push the air over it, which is why I'm not a fan of the high fin count rads. Now, if you were to put this in the roof, where it's only 30mm thick, it doesn't touch the motherboard at all. You just fit the fans outside the case and you're fine. So you can have this 30mm thick one in. You won't have any problems with any motherboards. Fans just go on the outside. I always have my fans pulling air through the case, because I don't necessarily worry about having to feed the radiator with cold air. I always just have air in the bottom and in the front, and then out the roof and out the back, no matter what I do. So you could run one of these radiators in this without a problem. One thing I will say though is the RS240 and the EX240, I wouldn't really want anything much more than kind of a 2500K or something like that on it, because the way I do with my water cooling is I prefer to have the water cooling with low speed fans and really good temperatures, rather than high speed fans or warmer temperatures, because I always like mine cool and quiet. So I wouldn't necessarily say that this would be enough for you. But that is when, what I would say is you're going to need to run a second radiator, which is what we're going to look at now. And we'll look at that quickly. I'm just going to have to change the camera again, and we'll talk about that quickly now. Right then, this is the most important thing I can speak to you about with this case if you want to put a radiator in the bottom of the case. We've obviously got the NZXT power supply here. This is 175mm long. The AX850 here, the AX650, 750 and 850 are all the same size. Now this is a standard length ATX power supply, which is 160mm, 160mm. If you want to put a radiator in the bottom of this case, you can't have any bigger than 160mm power supply in the bottom. It's absolutely critical, because, I'm just going to spin my camera thing around here so I can kind of show you. Basically, if I move the NZXT one out, we put the Corsair one in, and that's the Corsair one in. To be able to fit a radiator in the bottom of this case, you need to have the barbs at this end, barbs at the front end, because that's where the bigger end tank is, and then when it goes in, that is basically what you have. So if I rejig the camera so that you can get a little bit of a better view, essentially, I mean, we've got room here, but you need to have that little bit of room at this end so that you can have your power supply cables coming out, and then the room at this end is for the end tank. Now this is a 30mm radiator, so I'm just going to grab the fan from the roof. Now I'm trying to show you this in the easiest way possible without me having to keep taking stuff in and out of the cases. So 30mm radiator in the bottom. If you wanted to run push-pull, you can get that in there fine, because you can see that we've got the radiator in, two sets of fans. In fact, I'm going to change the light in a little bit for you. There we go. Right, so we've got two sets of fans in there. Now with that, you can see that you've got the radiator, the two sets of fans, and the two sets of fans go just underneath the front fan. So you can see that you can get push-pull in there, and with that 140mm front fan, that will go underneath. One thing I will say though, is that when you come to actually build the rig, obviously you're going to have a fan at the bottom and a fan at the top. So we'll do this just to demonstrate, just to be able to show you. When it does all go in there, you will see that obviously with the barbs at this end, you will have a difficulty. Right, and that's how it's going to sit in there. It will be very, very tight for these barbs here. So what I would say is you're either going to have to mod the edge of your fan, which isn't really ideal, or you will need some like an extender and a 45. Now I have built, and I will put it in the description, or I'll add a little link in, I have used this fan with push-pull in this case in the past. And basically with a 45 degree and a little extension, it's literally mil perfect to skim past the front fan. So it does fit. You can 100% get it in here and it work. But one of the things that I would kind of advise you guys is, everyone thinks that adding more fans is going to make a bigger difference to your temps, which it's not really. And what I would honestly do would be I would just run a thicker radiator. So you want what we call like a double thick or a standard thickness, whatever you want to call it, 60mm thick radiator. Now we know that these rads are 30mm thick. Now you can get some 60mm thick radiators. The XSPC RX240 is one of them. I've got one in my Nürburg rig, I've got one in my main rig at the moment, and the second place competition case has also got one in as well. So basically, if we were to put these in, that is how the radiator would look in the case. Because obviously we've got 30mm radiator, 30mm radiator, so we know that's going to be our 60mm thick RX240. It's just a pity at the moment I've not got one to hand, I've just not got a spare one. But we've got the fans at the bottom. Now it will all screw into place. You're going to be very, very tight for your power supply cables on this end, but it will go in. And it is immensely tight on the fan at the front as well. But it does all just within like literally millimeters clear each other. So you can get it all in there. Again, with this, you're not going to be able to use a standard barb here. So you're going to need some 90-degree angle fittings or something to be able to bring the hose out tidily, but it could all go in there. Now if I zoom the camera back a bit and we jig it up, what we're going to do is we're going to, just in our mind's eye, we're going to imagine that we've got a radiator in the roof, without me moving the power supply because it's not screwed in. We've got a radiator in the roof, we've got a CPU block, we're going to assume that we've got a GPU block as well. And what I would do is, because we're so tight of room, you're really going to need to have a reservoir that goes in the bay. And I'd also kind of say that you're going to need one with a pump built in as well. Now XSPC do one where it's all built in, where the pump's actually inside the reservoir. Now I would say that that pump's not necessarily, in my eyes, good enough to be able to run 2 rads and 2 blocks. I'd be a little bit worried. It'll work, I would just personally, if it was me, I wouldn't want to do it. So I would be looking at getting one of the reservoirs that you can put a DDC or a D5 in the front. Now the DDC bay reses are a bit noisy, so I'd probably lean towards getting one of the D5 variants if you can. Alphacool or Phobia, I can't remember which one it is, it's one of the aqua tuning brands. Anyway, they've actually got some new pumps coming and they're tiny, they're ceramic ones. And you can have 2 of those pumps in a single bay res. I would even more than likely use one of those. They are coming out very shortly. I think they're due from the time of the review going live, they're due out in about 2 weeks. So I'd probably get a double one of those. So we'll assume we've got a bay res in the front with the pumps and everything all built in. So how I would loop mine up, I'd go from the pump to the first radiator, because don't forget we want it to be tidy, so we'll come straight out into the first radiator. Out of the radiator we then go into the CPU. From the CPU we then come out and go into the graphics card. From the graphics card we'll come down and go to one side of the bottom rad, and then out of this rad, and we'll come back out to the top. You do not need to go block, rad, block, and then back. There's next to no benefits in doing it. With water cooling, it's all about being tidy. Because it's a sealed loop, sticking blocks in between rads will make 1 to 2 degrees difference, and it will earn you the Tiny Tom Logan called me a complete and utter noob badge. Basically, you're worrying too much. The whole point for me with water cooling is, yeah, okay, you're going to get, it's going to, lower your temps, especially on your graphics card, but it's about aesthetics. You've got to spend your time. You want the shortest possible loops, the cleanest possible look, and literally as little hose as you can really get away with. So having, hose coming out all over the place, it'll just end up looking like Spaghetti Junction and look like a complete novice has done it. If you can make it look all really tidy, it will look a lot more expensive, and basically the people out there that actually know what they're looking at and talking about will appreciate and respect your work more than your mates down at the local computer shop that haven't got a clue what they're talking about, that think this big, massive water cooling hose looks good. And to be perfectly honest with you, look at every single one of the custom builds I've ever done. It's all about having it looking tidy. So, the long and short of it is, radiator in the roof, simple radiator in the roof, is a 30mm thick. Will bolt in. You have to have the fans on the outside, but it will bolt in fine. In the bottom, you can get away with a 30mm radiator and push-pull, but I wouldn't bother. I would just have a 60mm radiator in the bottom with a single set of fans. And with those two, you could get away with running a decent CPU and GPU and keeping relatively good temps. And like I said, I would keep an eye out for those, the single bay res. I can't remember whether it's Alphacool or Phobia that are going to be bringing out these new ceramic tiny pumps. But they're meant to be really good. Two of those is meant to be better than a DDC. I will be doing a review soon, but I'd have a look for one of those. Worst case scenario, get a single bay res and then get one of the Phobia or one of the small square pumps, put on some foam underneath the reservoir in like the optical bay area. Now, one thing I haven't mentioned is the fact that we've actually removed the hard drive, and it does just unscrew here. This is all basically, you just take a few screws out and it all comes out and undoes. So you could still have a solid state drive fitted and still have a decent storage drive fitted. So you could have your 2TB Western Digital Green or whatever. And you're not going to have to worry about putting hard drives up in the optical bays or anything. And obviously we don't like optical bays anyway, so we don't need to fit that. Before people start saying, I've got an optical bay in my bench rig, I have got an optical bay in my bench rig, but that's because I get so much hardware before you guys have even heard about it. I just get it sent on discs half the time, so I need that optical bay for that. For you guys out there that buy stuff after it's been released and it's available to download on the website, you don't need an optical bay because you can just download the drivers and stick it on a USB stick. And that's literally, I would not have one in my bench rig if I didn't have to, but it's just because I get so much stuff so new that 9 times out of 10 I don't even get a chance to go onto the websites to be able to get it. It just ends up coming in the box with a disc or whatever. And you'd be amazed how many times I've done reviews where there's not been up-to-date drivers on FTPs and stuff like that, and I've ended up having to use just like driver discs in the box. The Mars 2, for example. So yes, that is the long and short of it. We ended up going a bit off topic, but this is your 692 review with a good in-depth look at the options that you're going to have for water cooling as well. These are the original radiators that I used in Snowdrift that I took to a gadget show last year, just in case you're wondering. And it's Snowdrift that I did this build in, and it's one of the reasons why I'm quite intimate with this case and what you can do with it. It's a lovely case, and to be perfectly honest with you guys, it deserves nothing else but the OC3D Gold Award. You just need to be very careful at picking your components when you want to water cool it, but hopefully I've given you enough of a run through for you to be able to work out what's going to be best for you. But like I said, if you're worried, get an RX240 for the bottom, an RS240 for the roof. Look for those new Phobia or Alphacool pumps with a single bay res that you can put in the front. You can get them where they literally have 2 pumps in, but it's for a single loop, so you can do that. And then you just pick your CPU block of choice and your GPU block of choice, hose it all up. I normally use 1/2-inch fittings with 7 16-inch hose. I don't like compression fittings because they're too big. And then your 45 and your 90 degree fittings, you just then use those depending on quite literally how you're going to, loop it up. But hopefully that's all you should really need to know, because that is one hell of an in-depth water cooling look at this case. So now I've been chatting for so long, I'm going to leave this video here. It's a shame, I apologise I've not been able to actually build you a proper rig in this, but I'd never ever stop building computers if I water cooled and, you know, actually built proper loops and everything. But hopefully you'll get a rough idea of what you need to do. I'm going to love you and leave you here. Hopefully this has inspired you, and I really do hope if you do buy this case, or you do any water cooling or anything in this case, make sure you drop by the OC3D forums or the TTL Facebook page and post pictures, because I would love to see it, especially on the forums. And then make sure you drop me a PM as well, and I'll drop by and take a look. Obviously the forums is better because you can put reams and reams and reams of pictures, and I'm always interested to see what you guys do with your rigs. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another massively long video for you. This is no 5-minute flipping skim over review, is it? Out.